Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, many different styles, and these guys are one of my favourite Swedish breweries, I would say, and they are probably one of the most diverse breweries in Sweden when you consider the whole range of things that they do. So yeah, always nice to review new beers from them. I've heard this one's pretty good and I haven't reviewed something from them in quite a wee while. So let's see how we get on with this one then. Hopefully it's another good beer and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get your Gothenburg catchphrase in because it's channel tradition. We're going to go out to the east of the city to Landvetter, where the airport is, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Astro Gold. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is simply listed as an IPA, but looking at the ingredients, it contains oat and wheat, so I'm guessing that it will be more along the lines of a New England IPA. So yeah, been a good while since I've had an IPA from these guys, a good few months actually, come to think of it. So let's see how we get on with this one then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Bryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is hugely appreciated, and as always, you can check out the lists of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish beer playlist. So yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at the brewery notes before we taste the beer. So, Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Landvetter on the eastern outskirts of Gothenburg in Sweden. And the brewery was actually established back in 2005, a little bit further south in Mölndal by Mikael Engström Dugge, whom of course it takes its name from. So a few years prior to this, in about 2002, Mikael had met an Englishman who was selling second-hand breweries, and this got him thinking about brewing his own beer. So he studied the admittedly very complex Swedish alcohol laws, visited various other breweries around the country, and then started buying up equipment to put together his own brewery, which culminated with the opening of the first Bryggeri in Mölndal in 2005. Over the following years, they continued to develop new recipes and try out different styles and things like this, but very quickly, or rather quickly I guess we should say, they outgrew their original home. And by 2009, they felt the need to move, and so they moved out from their original brewery up to Landvetter in 2010. So the older brewery had a capacity of 1,500 hectolitres of beer per year, which is about 150,000 litres, but the new brewery started off with a capacity of 8,000 hectolitres, which is, 800,000 litres, and this has been more than doubled in recent times. Over the years, the brewery really became known for their different fruity, juicy sour beers, but also for their big imperial stouts and imperial porters and things like that. When I first encountered Bryggeri, that was what they were well known for, were the dark beers and the kind of sour beers. But in more recent times, they've been investing a lot in their barrel aging to expand the darker beers that they do, but they've also been doing a lot of different IPAs and things like that. They've got a lot of New Englands now. They've been doing some West Coasts. They've been doing some Hefeweizens and stuff like that as well. I think one style I haven't had from them though, come to think of it, is a black IPA. So that would be an interesting addition to the Dugges range. But the other thing to point out about these guys is that they are one of the co-owners of the two Brewers beer bars in Gothenburg, along with All In Brewing and I believe Electric Nurse, who are run by Mikael's daughter Ida and her husband John. And that is another brewery that is definitely worth checking out, as is All In Brewing. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Bryggeri for the moment. As I said to you before, these guys do some really awesome stuff. Tropic Thunder, for me, which is a collaboration sour that they did with Stillwater Artisanal from the States. That's one of the kind of cult classic beers, maybe the cult classic Swedish sour beer. And that's quite easy to get a hold of through Systembolaget. So I would recommend that you get a hold of that if you get the chance. But try some of their big imperial stouts as well. The Egypt is a very good one, so I do recommend those actually. But yeah, any beer you get from Dougas is going to be of good quality. I've had many of them on the channel and I always enjoy doing these reviews. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Dougas Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and get the beer open. So this one, as you can see, the artwork on it is kind of similar to what we've had from Dougas before, but this is a 500ml can. There you can see the Dougas D, and you'll always get these kind of things. And you'll also see the Dougas symbol on the back there as well. They do have a few different symbols that they use, but like I say, this one is a 500ml can, and they've only started using these fairly recently for their IPAs, if memory serves me correctly. So yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the back as well. It says sweet fruit, citrus, green, grassy, floral and woody aromatic notes make up this smooth IPA bursting with flavours. High on haze, hops and feel to get that flavourful, cool character. Starry. So yeah, I believe this one was released for August as part of the Lokalis Moskalegt, and yeah, it is supposed to be pretty nice. Like I said to you, this one is a 6.5% New England IPA. So we've got maybe about 80% of the beer in the glass at the moment. And you can see that this one poured with about a half finger of a bumpy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. I'll just bring that up so you can have a little look at it. But colour wise, this one is somewhere along the lines of a mango juice colour. It has got a little bit of that mixed tropical fruit juice colour to it, but is a wee bit more along the lines of a mango. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in can also affect the colour of the beer, but when it comes to New England hazies, that's not something that we normally need to care about. The level of haze on this one, I have to say, is actually quite impressive for a 6.5%er. Now, level of haze is due to the oat content, wheat content, and the yeast that you use, and it can vary from brewery to brewery and recipe to recipe. There's not a rule about, you know, going further up the alcohol scale, you'd have more oats, more wheat, and thus more haze. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, this one, I have to say, is quite impressive with its level of haziness when you consider it's only 6.5%. There are 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, and you can see a few little ones just going up toward the bottom of that head there, but the head has kind of faded away to just be a nice kind of thin layer, and round the edge of the glass, it's just got a little bit of that thicker foamy character to it. But yeah, this one does look pretty nice, I have to say. I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one, so let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get from it. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, straight away you can tell it's pretty straight up in what it's going for. You wouldn't expect anything less from some of these Dougas IPAs. One thing I always used to find with Dougas beers was they had a lot of flavour to them, but they were quite light in the mouthfeel. But I think in more recent times they have actually changed that a little bit. I know it's the girl who brews for them now used to brew for one of the breweries in London, but I forget which one, if indeed she is still there. But yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this is a really nice, just bright, juicy IPA. I like how this goes together. Yeah. So, I'm going to say straight away, in terms of a general view of a New England IPA, as I've always said, there's 6 different aspects you can look at. The kind of the kind of yeasty farmhousey character, the lively and grainy side of things, the wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweet side of things. For me, the first impression I get from this one is that it's quite wheaty, but at the same time you do have a little bit of oatiness coming out of it. The green component is actually quite pungent in this as well, and it does have some nice, just juicy tropical fruits actually. So yeah, I think this one's going to be an interesting combination. I've actually just noticed that on the side of the can it does tell you what hops are in this one, and it's interesting too because I was thinking this comes across as being very familiar, but yeah, it's got Azacca, Citra, Idaho 7 and Mosaic in it. So all of these are American hops, all in the region of 14% alpha acid. Azacca's going to give you a good little bit of kind of tangerine note and pineapple. Citra's going to give you big juicy mango, bit of stronger passion fruit and stuff like that, but also a bit of lemony limey character. Idaho 7's going to give you all the soft tropical fruits, you know, papayas, apricots, a bit of mango as well. Then Mosaic's going to give you that big tangerine orange. So yeah, I knew from smelling this that this was something familiar, and we are quite familiar with all of these different hops But yeah, let's break this aroma down for you a wee bit more and just describe it more in depth before we taste. So the malty backbone of this one, you can definitely smell a wee bit of bread crust out of this. There are elements of crackery, like Jacob's cream cracker type characters in there, but for me, it's the white breadiness that really comes to the fore on this one. At the back of the nose, there's definitely a big, wheaty, bitey character to this one, and the deeper in that you take the aroma, the more of that you're going to get. But yeah, in the middle of the nose, there's a lot of oatiness. And you can tell with this beer, it's still fairly fresh, but it's not at its optimum freshness. As I always say to you, oaty character is usually a telltale sign of how fresh your beer, your New England is going to be. If it's really wet and creamy, then it's fresh as can be. But if you start to get some dryness out of the oats, that tells you it's a little bit older. And you're getting a bit of creaminess in here, but also starting to notice these slightly drier oaty notes. So yeah, for me, it's quite a bready leaning New England, this one, but there is the wheaty bitiness there at the back of the nose and some of the oatiness in the middle. There is a slight degree of sweetness to this one, a little bit of that kind of butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. So this one's showing a few different characteristics that we know quite well from the New England IPAs. I've got a feeling this one might be quite well balanced. But yeah, always enjoy trying these new Dugas beers. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the malty side of this one. Green component, when I first opened it up, you could smell it was really bright and really floral. Remember, New England IPAs rely on late addition and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs tend to have quite a lot of early addition hopping. Early addition hopping within the first hour of the wort boil gives you all your bitterness. In the last half hour of the wort boil, we're assuming, of course, it's a 90-minute boil because that's kind of standard. But in the last half hour of the wort boil, your late addition hops give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and then dry hopping is completely flavour and aroma. But this beer really has a very bright floral character to it. There's some nice wetter grassiness in there as well, and the grassiness does have a wee bit of zesty character, and I would guess that that is probably due to the Citra in this one. Citra's always going to give you that lemony limey note and promote those grassy elements. But yeah, teeny bit of earthiness from the mosaic as well, little tiny bit of herbal character, but yeah, bright floral and quite smooth and grassy as well. So I like how that goes together. This one for me, actually, this one for me does the job on the green component. The fruity notes are really good in this as well. There's a hell of a lot of mango out of this one, and overall I would say the beer leans toward a mix of mango and kind of oily, juicy tangerine, and it makes sense with the hop combination that you've got the Idaho 7 and the Citra on one hand for the mango side of things, and the mosaic and the Azaka on the other hand for the orangey side of it. So yeah, underneath, you've got that a little touch of passion fruit from the Citra for sure. But yeah, big juicy mango from the Citra and Idaho 7. And underneath that, you can get some of these more soft apricot papaya type notes. Citra will contribute to that, but that's mainly the Idaho 7. I do get quite a wee bit of pineapple, and that's the Azaka, in my experience, that's going to give you that. But at the front of the nose, you really do get a little bit more of a kind of oily, tangerine orange. The interesting thing for me about this is that I don't get so much of the kind of lemony limey side of Citra that you can sometimes get in this one. But yeah, aroma wise, this one comes across very, very nicely, I have to say, and I'm curious to try it. So I think without further ado, we need to have a taste of this beer and see how we go. So yeah, this one is the Dugas Astro Gold, a New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA, coming in at 6.5% ABV, released as part of the Lokal's Moscow assortment. You see Systembolaget here in Sweden. It smells lovely. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål, and cheers. Oh yeah, first impression. It's one of these really smooth and juicy IPAs. It's actually a lot more oaty leaning in the mouthfeel than I thought it was going to be from the aroma, but you do get a bit of the wheat in the aftertaste. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very straight up kind of easygoing New England, this one. Just very Very easy to drink that. And as I said, this one to me has a bit more mouthfeel. It has a bit more thickness in the mouthfeel than what we've had from Dugas previously. I'm trying to remember if this is the first um, one that we had in the can, because I know it was maybe about March or something, or May, that we reviewed a Dugas beer. I mean, I can't remember if it was one of these, if the IPA was in the can. But yeah, this one is pretty damn solid, I have to say. I like this, so it gets a thumbs up from me. Is it the best beer I've had from Dugas Bryggeri? That's quite hard to say because there's always the nostalgia factor. I mean, the Egypt and the Tropic Thunder are just, for me, you've always got that factor in there. These are the beers that introduce you to things, and I love those. But this is a pretty damn solid New England IPA, and as I say, they've kind of thickened up their mouthfeel and stuff, and the beer just feels a lot better than some of the other ones we've had in the IPA categories. Because yeah, they had the Fresh and the Crush series, which one of them was a single New England IPA, the other one was the Double series. They had the Bite series, which was the West Coast IPAs. They've got the Future series for the stouts, the Mega series for the Big Beast stouts, the Single Fruit Sour series as well. Yeah, they also had a wheat beer series for a wee while too, which was interesting. Yeah, but this is, again, as I say, this is a really nice, just solid New England IPA. Let's break the flavour down for you, just describe it a wee bit more in depth. And yeah, the bigger the gulp of this one you take, the more of the wheatiness you have. But yeah, the tropical fruit on this is just really nicely done. So in the middle of your palate, then you can feel the base of that middle third of your palate. It's got this nice little bit of a fresh bread crusty sort of vibe to it, and again that comes out very, very nicely. On top of that, you do get a little layer of kind of Jacob's cream cracker, but then immediately beyond that, you've got this really dense layer which will be coming from the wheat. You can really feel the wheat just thickening out this beer. And again, the further into the aftertaste you go with this one, you get a bit of the bitiness from the wheat in the back of the palate, but we'll come to that in a minute. So yeah, little splash of bread crust, some Jacob's cream cracker, then a thick, wheaty bready sort of thing coming out of this one. Yeah. Yeah, it really does. You can feel the barley malt in there as well. I think that's what's going on. I think you've got the bread crust, then a little bit of the kind of barley malt bread. You can feel that it's got a little bit of that crispy sort of thing, but then the wheat sits on top of that and just thickens it out. And then on top of everything else there, then you've got the oaty character there. The oat kind of smoothens out some of the wheat in a way too. So down the middle line of your palate, you can feel that sort of. It's almost got like a little bit of a porridgey character to it, the oaty notes. But yeah, you've got that nice kind of smooth and slight sweetness to the wheat in the middle of the palate, and as you move out toward the edge of the tongue there, in that middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little touch of dryness to the oats. It's interesting though, because in the aroma, I wasn't picking up much in the way of sweetness. I wasn't picking up much in the way of sweetness from this beer, but I was picking up sweetness in the middle in the aroma, but in the flavour, the sweetness doesn't come out. Brain's not working today, guys. But yeah, you don't have so much of a sweetness in this beer. And yeah, so that is really quite interesting. Um, Yeah, so in the dead centre of your palate, you've maybe just got a little tiny circle there, and at 6.5% as well. This is the thing, you're not going to get too much in the way of sweetness from the alcohol on its own, but in the dead centre of your palate, there is a little bit of that Werther's Original sort of thing, and as you move out toward the edges, this sits on top of the oats, by the way, you do get a little touch of like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to it, so yeah. But I like it. I do like how that goes together. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate then. So if you go to the back third of the palate, you can feel the base of the beer, the bread crusty sort of thing. On top of that, you've got a nice little layer of kind of barley malt. You can feel the white bread there, and on top of that, you've got the wheat, and the wheat really kind of is sort of more dense in the back third of the palate, but you also get the bitiness there, and then on top of that wheat, you're starting to get the more kind of airy, yeasty notes out of this one, and it does have just a little touch of that farmhousey, really fluffy, airy white bread. That's the kind of yeasty character you're getting out of this one, but on the back third of the palate, it really is more of the bitiness of the wheat that kind of lingers with this one there. So yeah, when you first take this beer in, it leans a bit more toward the oaty side of the New England spectrum, but the more that you drink of it, the more it leans toward the kind of wheaty bitey end actually. But yeah, I like how that goes together. Let's move on to the hoppy side of things then. So the green component for me, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness there. If you move along the sides, you've got a little bit of a kind of herbal note, but then very quickly the green component starts to become nice and floral, and the floral character kind of pushes its way out a little bit more and increases the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, you've got that you've got that kind of floral. Yeah, you do have that big kind of floral aromatic side to this one, but I wouldn't describe it as spicy. And again, that tells me that this beer is relying mainly on late addition and dry hops. When you get when the green character feels really, pardon me, very deep, that is when you get more of the, that's when you can tell it's early addition hopping. But yeah, around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and a wee bit more kind of grassy. Nearly knocking the can over there. But the grassiness has a wee bit of zestiness to it. But at the same time, it's quite wet, actually. So I like how that side of things goes together. Yeah, so on the other than that, I don't think there's anything to say about the green component, but you do get I've said there wasn't much spice to it, but you get a teeny bit of that into the aftertaste as well, and that kind of matches up well with the sort of wheaty bitiness that the beer has. But let's focus on the fruity side of the beer. Border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, so you can feel that. Then the base of that front third of your palate gives you a little bit more of a kind of, it's a soft white bread, maybe a little bit oaty, and on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So if you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel the pungent notes of citra kind of coming out of this one. So you've got a bit of a stronger grapefruity, passion fruity note there, but it mellows out as you come further forward. So yeah, yeah, definitely with this one, a bit of a stronger passion fruity note. We bit of a lot of juicy mango as you move further forward, and that's again Citra and Idaho 7 that are going to give you that. But then as you move further forward, there's a little bit of a kind of apricot note underneath. You've got a bit of a brighter pineapple sitting on top of that as well. But then as you go into the kind of the pineapple will be from the Azaka, I would say, and potentially a little bit from the Idaho 7. But yeah, as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you start to get the more oily, tangerine orangey notes, and that's Mosaic and Azaka that are going to give you that. And just behind the front tip of the tongue, I think there's a wee bit of the lemony limey character from Citra in this, but I think the Azaka and the combination of the Azaka and the Mosaic in this are kind of pushing that back a wee bit, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's interesting this one. The tropical fruits are a bit more kind of airy, and they've got a wee bit more kind of zest to them, but the more orangey flavours are a lot more oily. They're a lot more oily and less zesty, in my opinion. That's kind of what I was trying to say there in not so clear words. But yeah, overall this is quite nice. It's quite a solid beer. It's not the most striking thing I've had from Dugas. I mean, my favourite beers, as I say, that I've had from these guys would be the Egypt, the Tropic Thunder, the two coffee stouts that I had from the Key de Sidamo Dimtu with Hunter and Sons from Bristol. Those still stick in the memory as well. But as a standalone New England IPA, I think this is pretty damn solid, and you can't knock them for that. It's another solid beer from a brewery that has a very good reputation. So yeah, worth trying. Absolutely worth trying. Yeah. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off this review, I would say that this beer, it's kind of it's mid-bodied to top end of mid-bodied. Yeah, So mid-body to top end and mid-body. Carbonation is smooth. It's got a bit of creaminess to it, but I actually find that this beer has a little bit more of a kind of wet but slightly oily mouthfeel. IBU wise, I think it's IBU wise, I think this one is yeah, sort of 30-ish IBUs. I think it's kind of around there. It's kind of fairly standard. It feels a little bit more bitter into the aftertaste. The malt base, as we said, has a little bit of bread crust and a bit of breadiness, a wee bit of creaminess to it. Not much in the way of sweetness, I would say. Just a tiny little bit. Then the fruity side of things, it's got a bit more of that pungent tropical fruit, a smoother one, and then you've got a nice kind of juicy, oily sort of note with the fruits as well. But overall, as I say, solid New England IPA. You can't ask for much more than that these days. The market is kind of saturated with this beer style. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Dugas Astro Gold, 6.5% New England IPA from Dugas Bryggeri in Landvetter, just to the east of Gothenburg. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dugas Bryggeri, and we will definitely return to these guys at some point very, very soon. Until the next time, it's Landvetter just now. Check out my social media, check out theirs. This was the Dugas Astro Gold, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon.